Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Create Above and Beyond, where I continue to progress through the quest line of Chapter 1, where last episode we got up to making 3 out of the 4 materials needed to start, and the 4th material is not that hard either. The first step I need to do is gather some more resources to be able to make another machine, which requires mechanical belts. Now, mechanical belts are actually made differently in Create Above and Beyond, needing cured rubber, which is made out of flowers and water somehow. And with 6 cured rubber, I can craft it into 3 belts. For the next resource, we actually need some sediment strainers and strainer bases, as this is how we can automate sand, which is needed for clay. Now, the strainer bases use a strainer on top, submerged in water, which is how it can get the sand. This is the easiest way to get sand automated currently, although there will be better methods in the future. So sediment strainers are just made out of sticks and canvases from Farmer's Delight, whereas sediment bases are made from andesite machines and iron bars. Using these two, there's a small chance of getting sand and clay from sediment strainers, and the sand can be washed into clay, which means it's another resource automated. Now that clay and kelp are automated, we can use a mixer to combine them together into algal blend, and then with a fan and lava, we can bulk blast them to cook them into algal bricks. Now for the next step, I actually need to alter one of the previous farms to be able to filter out andesite from the other stones that the bedrock miner produces. As currently, since they are in a 2x2 drawer, when an andesite funnel pulls out an item, it pulls out one of the 4, which means we are not guaranteed to get andesite, which is what I want. So by modifying it so that the andesite storage is in a different block than the other 3, that'll make it possible to extract the andesite and only the andesite, so that I wouldn't have to use a brass funnel to filter out the andesite. Now that that's changed, the next step is to make andesite alloy from 1 andesite and 1 algal brick, which makes 2 andesite alloy, which is another resource automated. Now the last step is really easy, just making oak slabs, which only needs 3 mechanical saws. But before that, I've also modified the output to only store the oak logs separately. So now with one saw you can strip the logs, another saw can cut the stripped log into 6 planks, which is actually a better conversion rate, and the last saw to cut them again into slabs. But definitely make sure that you have a filter, otherwise it's just gonna make random decoration blocks. Now the last step, all we have to do is make 3 more deployers, with the first 2 feeding in andesite alloy and the last one being a saw, as this is a processing line to make a kinetic mechanism, which is actually cheaper than handcrafting it. And once that's built, that means the kinetic mechanisms have been automated. And that means this is the end of Chapter 1 of Create Above and Beyond, which is the automation of the kinetic mechanisms. I do want to mention that the quest book talks about bottlenecks of resource production, which is actually a thing that I'm experiencing, as the sediment strainers are quite slow compared to all the other resource productions, which means sand isn't getting produced as often, which means clay isn't getting produced much as often, which slows down the production of andesite alloy. So I think this could be modified or improved later down the line when we can get rid of the sediment strainers. Okay, not gonna lie, I was gonna end the video here because I thought it would be longer, but let's continue on to Chapter 1A, where we are going to make sealed mechanisms. Now, Chapter 1A is not necessary for Chapter 2, but the resources that will be made are going to be used for Chapter 2, but will just be slower to automate if we don't. Chapter 1A focuses on sealed mechanisms, which are made from rubber and kinetic mechanisms. And before we got rubber from flowers, which is quite inefficient, so the real strategy to get rubber is through resin, which is from arboreal extractors, as they can harvest resin from trees and we can convert that into rubber. And apparently arboreal extractors make less rubber, or they make less resin if they're on the same tree, which I didn't actually know, and I thought you can actually hand place the trees. But if we were gonna continue, we're actually running out of power, so let's make another windmill. Okay, after the trees have grown, to make rubber, you have to pipe out the resin and put them in a press, as when you compact it, it makes rubber. And all you have to do is make another fan, as I can just bulk blast the rubber into cured rubber, which is actually the resource automated. Cured rubber is the ingredient used for sealed mechanisms, as with 2 around it and a kinetic mechanism, that makes a sealed mechanisms. And you craft it similar to the andesite machine, but with 8 sealed mechanisms and a copper casing. Then you can get a copper machine, which is used for items such as the spout, drain, and portable fluid interface. And rubber is also useful for mechanical belts, which is useful for automation, as we're going to use a lot of it soon. But that's going to be it for this episode. We've actually made a lot of progress completing chapter 1 of Create Above and Beyond. So don't forget to like and subscribe for next episode, where I continue onto the next chapters.